Got a very special guest with us today. He was a 13-year veteran of the NFL and is now part of the Compass Media Network's coverage of the Dallas Cowboys, and he's Danny White. Danny, how you doing today?
I'm great, thanks.
Glad to have you with us, and certainly want to talk about last night's game. Coming out of that there's a lot of overreaction, it seems like, about the Cowboys. Do you think they're as good as advertised, as good as what we saw throughout last night's game?
Well, I think they were better than advertised going into the game. A lot of experts, so-called experts, picked them to miss the playoffs and finish anywhere between 12th and 20th in the league, and I disagree with that. I think on paper at least they're as talented as anybody if they can stay healthy and and avoid just bad breaks. They're one game out from winning the division last year, and I think they're significantly better, especially defensively this year. So I was not surprised at all by the game last night and by what they did, and I think they're going to continue to get better if they can gain a little bit of confidence.
Well, and that kind of offensive performance last night, I think, is what a lot of Cowboys fans have been waiting to see. 300 yards passing, 100 yards rushing. There was a pretty good balance between run and pass. Is that kind of what you saw from that group last night?
Yeah, the big question mark offensively were the two guards, and I thought they kind of held their own, and then they lost Phil Costa to the center early in the game, and so they didn't have any of their veterans from last year at center and two guard positions, and really the guy that probably played the worst of all of them was Tyron Smith, the left tackle, who had a phenomenal rookie year last year, and he had three penalties and a couple of just whiffs, so I thought the other guys held up pretty good. So overall I think they've got to be pleased. A lot of coaching points. It was not pretty, but they got it done, and I just felt all along going in that the Cowboys were a much more motivated team. The last memory they have of playing football in the regular season was there in MetLife Stadium against the Giants last year for the division championship, and that's the kind of thing that can motivate you to come back and do something about it when you have that opportunity back to back to do something like that to a team that ended your season last year. It can be a great motivator, and the Giants are coming off the banquet tour. I mean, last 6 months they've been going to banquets, playing in golf tournaments, and celebrating, and they just weren't nearly as hungry as the Cowboys were.
You mentioned the defense and how it was revamped. The secondary's been there's been a lot of talk about how the secondary struggled in Dallas. What did you think of the new revamped corners and how the defense played overall throughout the game?
Well, we saw what Rob Ryan wants to do. We saw the beginnings of it, which is, press the corners, slow down those wide receivers, and give your pass rush buy a little bit more time for your pass rush to get to the quarterback. They didn't do it all the time, but they did it some last night, and I thought it worked pretty effectively. Eli was under pressure most of the night, and when you've got a guy like DeMarcus Ware on one edge, and now they just need somebody at Spencer or somebody to step up, and instead of getting 6 sacks, you need that second guy to get into double figures with 10 or 12 sacks. Now you've got two legitimate threats, and you can't just double team one guy. And so they need somebody else to step up, and then between that and those two corners pressing the wide receivers, watch out. I mean, they could have a heck of a defense. Do
you think Jason Witten should have been playing last night?
Well, yeah, I do. I mean, Jason should have played when I played. He should have played with the guys, probably a couple generations ago, because he's that kind of a guy. And I've felt for quite some time that one of the things the Cowboys are is they're pretty soft on injuries. I mean, the guy's got a minor injury, he doesn't practice, and there's a difference between pain and injury. And I know Jason lobbied and went to doctor after doctor after doctor to try to find someone that would clear him and let him play. He was even willing to sign a waiver, which has never been done before. And the Cowboys are not going to go for that, but he even wanted to sign a waiver to go play play without any liability to the Cowboys if something happened to him. But I think he was fine playing. They didn't play him the whole game. They kept him out a few series in the second half, but that's such a freakish kind of an injury. I think he was fine. I think the chances of re-injuring that spleen were pretty remote.
Going back to before the beginning of the season, Jerry Jones had comments like this. This was kind of a make-it-or-break-it season for the Cowboys, or at least a lot of the guys on the team. Did you agree with that sentiment, that this is a make-it-or-break-it year? Especially, I think Tony Romo is probably the one guy that people look at that he needs to make it happen this year.
Well, no, I don't. I think Romo's still got a good 3 or 4 years, 5 years left in him, and Jason Witten and those guys, they're okay. And that's, I think, Jerry's way of, maybe putting a little bit of pressure on him. And, he's a great guy to play for as an owner. He loves his players, but he knows how impatient the fans in Dallas and the media in Dallas are getting. And there is a window, and everybody knows it. The players know it. I mean, Tony knows that window is closing. He's on the downhill side of his career, and so he doesn't need anybody else telling him that. That really isn't something that's going to motivate him. But Jerry's Jerry. I mean, you get what you get with him, and he's very outspoken. It's a good thing most of the time. Every once in a while, he says something that might hurt a player or a team, but you can't argue with the fact that he's one guy, probably more than any other owner in the league, that would spend his last dollar to win. And that's the kind of guy any player wants to play for.
Grade the replacement officials last night. How'd you think they did?
I thought they did pretty well. There were a couple of missed calls. There was a holding penalty that should have been called on the Cowboys in the end zone on a pass, and it was a big play. It was that third down after the interception when they got it on the 1 yard line and ended up kicking a field goal. That was pretty blatant. I thought they should have missed. There was another one that was there was a roughing the quarterback called that I thought was a little picky, that maybe shouldn't have been called. But based on the preseason games that I saw, I thought these guys last night did a great job.
Yeah, it certainly seemed to be a vast improvement from what we'd seen. Do you feel like this is going to be a big story throughout the season? I mean, from anything that you've heard, are we going to be stuck with replacement officials, you feel like?
Oh, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know where they're at with that at all. I hope they get it resolved, because when you start playing Sunday games and there's 10 or 12 games going on, you're gonna have. I mean, we saw it in the preseason. We saw some horrible officiating, and it's hard as a commentator not to say something about it. You try to kind of bite your tongue a little bit and not talk too much about it, but. I mean, it was really, really bad, and in a close game, those calls are going to determine the outcome of a game, and that's what you hope never happens. And that's why we've got instant replay and all that, because you hate to see a game decided by a bad call, and we're going to see a lot of that. We had the best crew they've got, obviously, last night, because it was the only game going on. But when you've got 10 or 12 games going on, you got high school officials out there trying to call that game. There's going to be some issues with it. So, I for one just hope they get it resolved as soon as possible.
All right, before we get out of here, we'll actually get you out of here on this. Before the season started, what was did you feel like there was a favorite to win the Super Bowl this year, or do you think it's kind of a wide open year in the NFL?
No, I think it's a wide open year because the defending champions were not your typical defending champions. I mean, statistically, they were very, very average. The worst running team in the league. I mean, when's the last time that happened? And they just got hot at the right time, right at the end of the season, and so where normally you measure yourself against the Super Bowl, the world champion, and you set all your goals based on what they did. Well, who wants to be the worst rushing team in the league?
Yeah.
Nobody's going to set that as a goal. So I think it's a year. I think last year it was almost kind of a freak thing that the Giants ended up winning it when they were very, very fortunate to win their division. So I think you just got to look at the teams that were there, the Packers and the Saints, and there's just a lot of teams, the Patriots, that are kind of there year in and year out. And I think the Cowboys are good level better than they were last year, and could easily make a run for it. The Eagles are going to be good again, and so I think it's going to come down to injuries and who gets hot at the right time.
All right, Danny. Well, we really appreciate you taking some time out of your day to talk to us. Of course, you can hear Danny on Compass Media Network's coverage of the Dallas Cowboys the entire season right here on ESPN Alamogordo. Danny, thanks so much for joining the show today.
Okay.